The Bambu Lab A1 3D printer has been involved in a massive recall, resulting from issues with the heatbed cable. When the recall was fully announced, they gave existing customers two choices. They could either return the entire printer in exchange for a full refund, or they could hold on to their printer and eventually be sent out a replacement heatbed which they would then need to swap out themselves. Whether you've got a replacement heatbed as a result of this recall, or you've just ordered one as a result of a different issue, in this video I'm going to go through all the steps that you need to follow to swap it out. So, let's have a look. To get started, let's take a look through what you get in the box when you receive your replacement heatbed. The pack that your replacement heatbed comes in is simple but contains everything you need. The first thing obviously being the heatbed itself, which comes pre-fitted with the cables that were the root of that recall in the first place. Everything else is in this small bag in the corner. Now inside here we've got an even smaller bag that contains 4 screws for mounting the bed to the printer, 4 silicone screw covers for covering up those screws, and a small strip of tape, all of which we're going to look at in a bit. The last thing that comes with this kit is a silicone end stop. Now when you're running your printer, you're always going to want to leave a good amount of space behind it to allow the bed to move back and forth and for the cable to move around freely. However, if it's not running or when you're positioning it, you might end up pushing it back against the wall, and that could then bend the cable at the point that it comes out of the printer to a point that it could damage it. This silicone end stop, which is effectively a big chunk of silicone with an adhesive sticker on the side, sticks to the back of your printer and helps protect that cable from this circumstance. Obviously this isn't a 100% fail-safe, but it is nice to see as an extra precautionary measure and something that they didn't have to send out. It shows that Bambu Labs was going a bit beyond their minimum requirements for this recall. In addition to this, you'll also require an H2 hex screwdriver. You should have received one of these with your A1 3D printer when you first got it. Although not essential, you may also find a pair of precision tweezers useful at a stage later on in this process. Now we've got our tools, let's go ahead and get this swapped out. So before we get started replacing the bed, as we're going to need to move the printer around a bit in this process, remove any filament that you have pre-mounted to your printer. Once you've removed your filament and your printer is cooled down, you'll want to turn it off and remove the power cable. If you've already fitted the printable cable protector that Bambu Labs released, you can remove it now, but it's fine to just leave on as we're going to be replacing the entire cable. Now slide the bed to the back of the printer and carefully raise the Z axis to the top. If you still have the plate fitted to your bed, remove that and store that safely. Remove the 4 silicone screw covers from the bed as shown here by inserting the H2 screwdriver into the hole in the middle of them and then peeling them up out of the bed. Unscrew the 4 screws, one located in each of the holes that you've just uncovered. If you're not able to actually remove them once they've been unscrewed, this is fine because you're going to be removing the bed anyway. With those screws removed, you can now lift the bed off of your printer and place it neatly to the side. We're now going to lie our printer on its side so we can access the underneath, and for this you're going to want something that you can rest the top left on, making sure that it's not putting any weight on the filament cutter or the extruder carriage. A cardboard filament box is perfect for this. What you're going to want to do is make sure that your printer is lying on 3 specific points. You want it to be resting on the back left of the base, the bottom of the left Z-axis and the top of the left Z-axis. So let's get this rotated around so you can have a look. We'll move the bed out the way and we'll slide that around. We'll move our cardboard in place and then we're going to just rest this on those back 2 corners, making sure that no cables are caught, and then lie this top left corner on the cardboard box, making sure that no weight is being placed on the filament cutter or the extruder carriage. Okay, we're now going to unplug the cables up here as well as remove the USB-C clamp, and then we're going to remove the plastic shrouds from the base and unplug the heatbed cables. Let's start out by removing the cables up here. Disconnect the cables for the Z motor, the X motor and the camera. If possible, do this by pulling on the plastic connectors themselves rather than the cables. Once they've been disconnected, unscrew the locking screw here, then pull the USB-C module away from the connector ports and remove. Next, we're going to remove the smaller of the 2 bottom covers towards the back of the printer. Remove the 6 screws at the bottom as shown here and keep them safe because you'll need them later. With the screws removed, you can now remove the plastic cover. It will still be clipped in around the edges, but you'll be able to just pull this away. Then put it aside until later. Next, we'll be doing the same thing but with the larger base panel, which features 10 screws. As with the smaller base plate, once the screws have been removed, it will still be clipped in, but you can just pull this off. There may be a small bit of hot glue that is being used on the inside of this base plate, especially down near where the PSU is, but providing you're sure that there is not any cables being tugged as you're pulling away, this should be able to be just pulled straight off. Whilst there's quite a lot going on down here, everything we're going to be doing is down in these two areas. The first thing we need to do here is remove these two heatbed power connectors. They have matching metal grips in an insulating wrap. All you need to do is pinch on the metal grip and pull to remove them. Next, you need to remove the heatbed sensor connector. Remove this by pulling on the connector itself, not tugging on the wires. Once it's unplugged, you may need to pull it through a wad of glue in the corner. Unlike when you're undoing a connector, when doing this, you'll want to gently pull on the cables themselves and not on the connector. Be gentle and apply just as much force as you find is needed to put it through the glue. I know technically it shouldn't matter if you damage these cables as you're replacing them anyway, but it's good practice to be careful in these situations. Moving on from this section here, the next thing you want to do is remove the ground cable, which is this cable here. There's a similar cable above it which you do not want to remove. It is this lower one, this first one here, that is the one that you want to remove. So using your H2 screwdriver, undo the screw and remove it from the bottom of the printer. Keep the screw as you're going to need this later. Gently lift the heatbed cable from the inside of the printer until it unhooks, then pull it from the outside and you'll be able to pull it through. Continue pulling the cable from the outside and you'll be able to pull through all the cables you've just disconnected from the inside, making sure that none of them are getting caught as you do so. Okay, well we can get rid of our old heatbed, we don't need that anymore. And then we want to move the USB-C mount out the way and rotate our print back upright for the next step. With the old heatbed out of the way, it's time to get out the new one, so let's get this unpacked and have a quick look. With it unwrapped, you can see that the top side is exactly the same as the old one and it even shows the same model number. Underneath, we have all the cables curled up and attached with 2 strips of tape, so carefully remove the tape to free up the cables for use. The cables of the new heatbed come in a braided cable cover, the same design that is already used on the X and Y axis on the A1 printer, and hopefully these are going to be better at bending and flexing than the standard silicone cover that was used on the original bed. To fit your new heatbed to your printer, you want to position this section underneath the heatbed onto these rails on top of your printer. Angling it to one side, hook the bracket underneath the print bed over the rails on your printer and then lower it down. Gently slide the bed towards the back of the printer to line up the screw holes. Each of these 4 holes in the print bed feature 2 screw holes. Using the screws that came with your new heatbed, screw the bed to the printer using the holes towards the front of the printer. Screw all 4 in fairly loosely to begin with, and once they're all fitted, go round again and tighten each of them up. Once they're all tightened, go round and add the 4 new silicone screw covers that came with the print bed. Now the bed is fitted, we want to rotate our printer onto its side like we had earlier, and then we're going to feed the new cables inside and get them connected up. Before we feed the cables inside the printer, we want to make sure that the cables are orientated correctly for use. You want to make sure there is a nice smooth curve going down from your bed into your printer and that it isn't twisted or curved like this. One single nice smooth curve is what you're looking for. With your printer on its side as it is right now, mimic this so you get one single nice curve going down from your bed into your printer. Once you're happy you've got a nice smooth curve in your cable, you can feed the end of all of them through the hole at the back of your printer, guiding them through with your other hand on the inside of your printer. Next we want to take all of these new cables with the exception of the yellow and green ground cable and feed them through this hole here. As you feed them through this hole, you'll start being able to see them through this hole here, and this is where using some precision tweezers may be useful to be able to direct them up into the area you want them. If you don't have the tweezers though, as I mentioned earlier, this is absolutely fine, and you can use your hex screwdriver to direct them where you want them to go as you're pushing from the other end.
Once they're safely through, you want to take the two insulated metal power connectors and fit them to these panels here. You can do this by just pushing them onto these metal pins. Either of these connectors can go on either of these pins. Once these are securely fitted, you can then move on to the sensor connector, which is the one with 4 wires. To fit this, line up the 2 lines on one side with the 2 holes and evenly push either side of the connector. Take the insulated end of the ground cable and feed a little of it through the hole that you fed the other cables through. Then push the cable through a little more from the outside to ensure there's a good amount of slack. Take the 4 sensor wires and loop them round this screw hole. Then, using the tape that came with your new print bed, fix them down securely. Using the original screw which you put aside earlier, take the ground cable and fit it back into the same position with the flat side against the printer. It's time to start getting things closed back up. Take the USB-C module and make sure that the cables are still located under the cable hook. Then take the large base plate and clip this back into place. This will just clip in around the edges to hold it in place, and then you can go through and screw into all the 10 screw holes using the screws that you removed earlier. Remember earlier we made sure that the cable on the outside of the printer had a nice smooth curve? Make sure this is still the case and then push in the cable until this rubberized block locks over the printer frame. Then, whilst holding in place from the outside, clip on the bottom cover. This will then lock that cable block in place, and you can then screw back in this bottom cover using the 6 screws that you removed earlier. With both of these bottom covers, as they're only screwing into raw plastic, make sure you don't over tighten them. Now take the USB-C module and, using these connectors here, as you did when you first got your printer, slot it into place and then lock in the locking pin. Once that's in place, make sure that the cables at the other end of the USB-C module are neatly tucked in underneath the cable hook. Now, reattach the Z motor, X motor and camera connectors in the appropriate ports. Each of the wire groups should be labelled to indicate which port it needs to be connected to. Now you can rotate your printer the right way up again, and you can discard that cardboard box, you don't need that anymore. And on the back of the printer, you now want to fit your silicone end stop. To do this, all you need to do is peel off the 3M backing and then push it and press it against the back of your printer with the lip underneath the printer, not on top of it, and hold it there for about 3 seconds. Then you should be solid and ready to go.
And that's your Heatbed swapped over on the Bambu Lab A1. Whack your plate back on the bed. Check you're running the latest firmware.
Run a full calibration on your printer by going to Settings, and on the second page select Maintenance, Calibration, and then with everything selected, click Start.
And you should be ready to get up and printing again. And that's the entire process of how to replace the Heatbed on a Bambu Lab A1. Bambu Lab themselves did actually release their own video tutorial on how to do this, and it was quite good. But I know that different people like slightly different styles of tutorials to follow, so I thought it'd be worth me putting out my own flavour of the tutorial in case it may help some people. If this video has been helpful to you, which I hope it has, please make sure you hit the like and subscribe buttons. It makes a huge difference to me. Either way, thanks very much everyone, and until next time, as always, happy printing. Now your printer's back up and running, I'm sure you're going to want to get printing again, so why not check out some of my other tutorials where you can learn how to be the best maker you possibly can be, or put on a fun video, kick back and have some fun. Thanks very much everyone, and until next time, happy printing.